Soulmates and soul connections can be some of the most powerful experiences of our lives. They can also be some of the biggest mind fucks that we ever experience. And I want to talk to you a little bit about why that is. First of all, it's really important to recognize who has shaped our idea of relationships and what has not. In fact, that's the main thing I want to focus on today, because most of you watching this have spent a lot of time trying to understand yourself, trying to understand the other person. Why did things go the way they went? Or why do I feel the way I do right now? The problem for me is that most of us are trying to solve a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. And two of the most significant pieces in how you make peace with your relationships, find power and potential in your relationships, and ultimately experience fulfillment and satisfaction in your life, well, two of these pieces are what we've been conditioned to believe and what we've been conditioned not to believe. So first, let's go into what we've been conditioned to believe. Not a lot of you know that the idea of romantic love is actually not universal and it's not timeless. In fact, many scholars would suggest that we only came up with the idea of romantic love in the 1600s. And not surprisingly, many people give French poets and French culture a lot of responsibility for the evolution of that idea. We're not going to go into what relationships were before that or what they've been mostly since that, but let's just say it's only been for a small segment of human history and in a small segment of human culture where we actually believed that we were not only going to find one true love in our life, but we were going to have all of our needs satisfied by them through all of the stages of our life. Now, just think about that alone. That's pretty crazy. I mean, even in the 1600s, when they started to believe in romantic love, at least people had the decency of dying in their 30s. Okay, so right now we're living till 60, 70, 80, even 100. And we're wondering why we can't make our relationships last and last and last. Next thing, we have to recognize that many of the influences in our ideas of relationship have come from very, very modern sources, and frankly, sources that have no knowledge of what healthy relationships look like or what they should be. We have been informed by songwriters and story writers and entertainers. In fact, it's kind of cliche, but most of our ideas about relationships and what they should be come from Disney and these kinds of entities, which I don't think they were out to poison the world consciously. I think they were just a group of creatives that wanted to give people something hopeful and inspiring and pleasing and comforting, but they were not intending to be therapists or sage spiritual advisors. They were just making up shit so that we could enjoy new versions of old stories, right? So we can't really thank Disney for much in terms of sound psychology, at least not until recently, but we can certainly blame them for a lot of distorted ideas of happily ever after. Of course, we have other things like religious groups and family traditions, and many of these ideas of strict, lifelong monogamy, they're like 50 years old, maybe 100 years old. So we've got to be careful what kind of expectations we have of ourselves and of our relationships. Okay, now let's move on to the piece that's been hidden from us, because it really makes a lot more, it helps everything make a lot more sense. If you had been groomed, conditioned, supported to believe that you are a soul on this earth, a soul on this earth for your soul's evolution, then you would look at everything differently. In the spiritual traditions, where we think of the human experience as a fundamentally spiritual experience, that we are souls in a human incarnation to grow, to learn, to evolve, then we know that that is number one priority over falling in love, getting the ideal job, being married for a lifetime. All these things are ideas that have come from the outside in the last 100, 200 years. But when we look at the idea of a soul on earth here to evolve, well, we find that that concept pops up here and there all over the world for time immemorial. The idea that there is more to us than our bodies, more to us than our jobs, our relationships. Regardless of the definition of soul, what unites most of them is the idea that the soul is our consciousness, the energy of our consciousness and energy together. Now, if that is the case, then that means if someone comes into your life and opens your heart and then leaves your life, we can look at it from a soul perspective and ask the question, what did they teach me? What did they reveal in me? What did they help me access in myself? You see, the former way, the soulless way of looking at relationship, would leave us attached to them and thinking that our joy and happiness and fulfillment and experience of love resides in them or is because of them. No, they simply represent a set of conditions that for a period of time help you access a feeling. But again, that kind of Disneyland version of birds singing and fireworks going off and all this kind of crazy stuff, yeah, that's basically some writer somewhere a long time ago who maybe was never even married, who maybe never even fell in love, taking a brief experience, which is infatuation, and then extrapolated to suggest that maybe that's what life could be. Well, that's a beautiful escapist story, and we all need those stories, but that is not a roadmap for a life of fulfillment. Look to your soul. Look to soulfulness. Look to what your relationships are teaching in you. When you are struggling, look what they're revealing in you. Remember that nothing that's going on, as they say, is happening to you. It is happening for you. And if you look a little deeper, then what you'll realize is, in fact, life is happening through you. And that means everything you experience is for your growth, your healing, and your more full and complete experience of being. The problem is, when we don't know that, we judge our experiences, we label our experiences, we fear our experiences, and then rather than moving into the healing, the learning, and the increased capacity to love, we stay stuck, looking back and looking at inadequate and incomplete references for love and soulfulness in life. Remember, you are a soul here in this human world for an extraordinary experience of being, and that means coming into relationship with yourself, with all life. And let's face it, romantic love is beautiful if you can get it, amazing if you can hang on to it. But what about friendships? What about nature? What about family? What about our own soul self? Keep those things in mind, and you'll find quite the shift in the way you look at what you don't have and begin to celebrate and savor what you do.